Everyone, I just wanted to take a moment and talk a little bit more about subcultures and how we are going to focus on them in this first writing project that we're all working on. And I know this semester is accelerated and we're moving fast, but you're doing well. You're doing well. But it's really important to establish what it is, first of all, and which one of the subcultures that we consider ourselves members of or that we move around in that we want to focus on for this project. All right. And so some of the things it's important to think about what we've already established thus far about autoethnographic writing and research. And these are a couple of the things that we have established. First of all, through our activities, we've seen that the personal is social and the social is personal. That means even the most mundane, everyday acts and habits and practices that we engage in, they are socially significant. They are, first of all, they are influenced by society, and they also influence society and influence people and those around us. And it's rarely it's rare to experience something on our own in isolation. We share experiences, we share similar experiences, and it's important to talk about those. But that's one of the things how Boylan talks about bridges and uses that metaphor in her article is autoethnography is like a bridge. It's a tool that helps us to see how the society is influencing our personal lives and how our personal lives influences society and is mirrored in society. And so that's important to note. And it's also important to note that our history and the memories that we've gathered and our perspective influences our reality. And each of us have a very unique reality, a very unique way to see the world. And everyone's is valid, right? Everyone's is justified. No one person sees the world more correctly than the other. That's why we need to get together and talk and listen to one another and listen to our stories so that we can have a more robust, multifaceted, and more complete picture of how society works and what the world is like. And finally, this is key to autoethnography. See, I have a hard time saying it too. Is the ability to make our familiar strange. We're going to look at an aspect of our life taking place within a specific subculture, a specific community of people that we associate with that are, bound by this subculture, this interest. And our lived experiences within these places are so habitual and so normal that they often become invisible. And it is a trick and it is an exercise and it is difficult to kind of step back and step away from our lived experience and our lives and look at it with fresh eyes. Make that familiar strange so that we can see what's happening there. Because what we are doing in this essay, in this research, the research we are doing is this analysis, this looking at this space and analyzing this space. That is research. That is research. It draws on our memories. It draws on what we see, feel, and observe. But it's really important to see that with fresh eyes, okay, to be able to analyze it and see all of the nuances and relationships and interactions and what they mean and how they reflect a larger societal issue or phenomenon or thing that happens, okay? But subcultures. So that is the foundation or the parameters really of this project is that we are only going to look at our experience within a specific subculture. So what do we mean by that? This is how we are defining this for this project. Okay. Subcultures are the relatively small, but specific. They're not abstract. They're specific cultural groups of people you associate with that gather together for a common goal or interest or ideology. And that common interest creates a shared identity. Okay, so there's certain groups that we belong to, not big ones, but certain smaller groups that we belong to that helps us create an identity or a definition of ourselves. So let me show you some examples. Okay, we're not going to be looking at a big cultural marker or identifier like ethnicity, gender, religion, socioeconomic status, language, political affiliation. Those are really big cultural markers, right? They're huge. But within those, there's subcultures that we belong to, little groups of people. Like, and think about clubs and groups. And I know some of the handouts and the readings talked about things like skinheads and things like that. Those are still quite large. You can do smaller ones, like the Hispanic Student Association that you're a member of, or the clubs at Paradise Valley, any of the clubs like Women's Rising, or let's say that your religion, the larger umbrella cultural marker of your religion is Christianity. That's big. That's big. But the subculture of that would be the congregation that you go to every Sunday. Maybe it's at the Paradise Valley Methodist Church. And that little congregation, those people who gather together every week, that's a subculture. That's a subculture. So you would examine that. What happens in that space with that group when those people come together? What's happening? How do they interact? What kind of significant issues, problems, or positive things do you see taking place within that community that's significant socially, okay, on the larger scale? Your family is a subculture of, maybe the American population. If you like gaming, maybe it's a specific gaming club, like the Phoenix Gaming Club. It can be your Dungeons and Dragons group, if you have a specific group that gathers together to play maybe every other weekend, or a garage band. If you're into fitness, so fitness is a big cultural identity, being, fit and all those kind of things, but your subculture would be your specific gym or your CrossFit team. If you go into that space, how do you see people interacting within that space? What kind of things do you see happening? If you're a Suns fan, okay, now there's different levels of Suns fans. Like, I am a Suns fan, but I don't eat, breathe, and drink the Suns, but my son does. And he gets on these forums, he gets on these discussions, and he gets on all these places, and he is really involved. And that idea of being a fan and being a member of that fan base, that is reflects, or that has created an identity for him. That's what we're looking at. That's the kind of subculture that we're looking for. It could also be where you're employed, could be a subculture. Maybe you work at the Burger King, or maybe you work at Home Depot. That is a subculture. That gathering of people and how they engage with one another, how they, the things that they do, that's a subculture. Clubs, all of those kind of things are subcultures. And I made some pictures, things that I was just gathering of subcultures, cosplay, people who gather together for cosplay, or I always lose the word, role play. Oh, I forgot it. Anyway, the role playing, or a knitting club, or an outdoorsman club. You can't simply say, oh, I'm an outdoorsman, or I like the outdoors, and call that a culture. A subculture is going to be a specific group that gathers together and does that activity together and identifies as doing that activity together. It could also be a fantasy football league, if you're really into that, or even a book club. So all of these things are subcultures, or cultures where you can look and see in your research. You're going to pick one and look and see what's happening within that place. And I've also added here some activities to help you brainstorm the different subcultures that you belong to. This is just something we do in our face-to-face classes, and you can do it also on your own and come up with an array of different subcultures. And then once you pick one, here are some questions that you can ask yourself that will help you, first of all, define what this subculture is, because when you write up your essay, you're writing this for an audience of Paradise Valley peers who may not be familiar with your subculture, with this subculture. So you're going to have to present it to them, introduce it to them, and explain your involvement in it. And then you're going to look at the issue or the theme or something that has come up that you've noticed as in your observations, even if they're just, observing your memories, something that came up that's socially significant. And that's going to be the main point of your essay right there. So I think that is it. And look over here. Yes, so let me know if you have any questions. Again, I'm going to be on Zoom virtually every Thursday afternoon between 12:30 and 2:30. I'm also available on Zoom plenty of other times too. If you can't meet at that time, we can set up a time if you want to talk about any of this, okay? All right, take care.